Welcome to Shedpix International Television.
Hi, my name's Alex Whittaker. Welcome to my shed. We're going to look at a microlathe today. It's the ArcEuroTrade C1. It's interesting to us as aero modelers because it's a very affordable device. It's a very capable little lathe. It has speed control, it has a proper chuck, and all its tooling, all those bits and pieces that sooner or later you need once you buy a lathe, those are at truly pocket money prices. As aero modelers, I think it's exciting because in the past we could make anything we wanted out of wood, but when it came to metal, the shutters came down. We didn't know how to do it, we didn't have a means of working metal. Now at these prices, with a lathe less than £200, anybody can have a go at making their own retracts, or making their own metal wheels, or repairing some of those engines that we've all got in the shed where we've broken bits of and they're out of production and we'd like to get them refettled and back in the air again. So let's take a look at this C1 microlathe, see what you think. As you can see, the C1 microlathe is a pretty little device. Let's take a little tour and start this end. At this end we have the centre spindle, and it's pierced by a hole. That hole goes all the way through, right the way through, and right through the chuck out the other side. So you could have a long piece of metal and bring it right the way through to the chuck, then take cuts off and push the metal through and feed it through. The chuck itself, I think, is super. It comes with this utterly maddening thing on a spring, the chuck key, which is supposed to spring itself out. It drives you mad after a bit. I think, like me, you'll end up wanting to take that off, but it is a safety feature. But this is so immensely better than those silly chucks where you've got to grip them and twist them against nails with two Tommy bars and absolutely massacre your fingers. This is a much better device, much neater, much more substantial, and of course, because of its size, it's got a good weight to it, so it adds to the flywheel effect, and I think a heavy chuck always helps. One of the things, anyway, that helps achieve a better finish. If you look at the bed, we'll see that the bed has the lead screw underneath, so no swarf can get into the lead screw. When we move on here to the cross slide, we notice that the cross slide table has these very handy dovetails. So what we can do, if we wish to, we can use this as a milling table. Mounted on it at the moment is the tool holder, the tool post. The tools don't come with it. If we move on to the tailstock, we'll notice actually that there's no drill chuck in the tailstock. They do market a tailstock drill chuck. Here it is. I found it. And that's only about an extra 10 quid. And that's symptomatic of this device because all of the parts that you can get for this lathe are available at pocket money prices. They're not expensive at all. In fact, the rumour is that the lathe is about to be shipped with this included anyway, which I think is a very useful addendum. The other thing I'd suggest, if you're serious about such a purchase of a lathe like this, which is eminently affordable, less than £200, which is a staggeringly low figure, is that you can buy a 4-jaw chuck for it. Now the great thing about a 3-jaw chuck like this is anything that you put in it gets automatically centred. But of course sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you want to drill a hole off-centre, or you want to machine something off-centre. To achieve that you need a 4-jaw chuck, and they do make a 4-jaw chuck available. If we move to this bit here, this is the main control panel. This is where things get very interesting because of Euro safety and other requirements. There's this substantial red button. You punch that if anything desperate happens and it stops the lathe. You have to twist it to repower up the lathe. This very, very useful guard is safety interlocked to the electronics, so that if this lifts, the electronics automatically switch off, or if you're running with that down and you lift it up for any reason, it switches the power off. Brilliant idea, like it very much. And also, the one thing you learn with lathes is never ever operate a lathe or a milling machine or a drilling machine or any power tool without eye protection, because as this is spinning round, it's throwing all kinds of muck and swarf and particles up into the air along with the oil that you might be using for any cutting purposes. Okay, let's power the lathe up and let's look at this intriguing safety interlock system, which makes sense once you see it done, but if the first couple of times you try it, you might think there's something wrong with the lathe. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the lathe. It's a safety feature, and even I admit it's well worth having. Okay, let's try the lathe's safety interlock system. You'll notice there's no power light showing there because last time I switched off the lathe I punched this red button. This is the stop button. The little arrows on there tell us that in order to re-establish power we have to first of all twist it. Power comes on. Now we have to select forward or reverse, in this case forward. Now we go to the power potentiometer. One click switches power through to the chuck and gradually we pick up the speed. And as you see, at the bottom end we can make it really crawl around, which is very, very useful indeed. Of course the top end is really useful if you want really high quality finish. Let's stop the lathe. Okay, there's no power available now. Switch that all back. When I switch this on this time, the power's established. Switch it forward. Let it run. Let's deliberately stop it. Lifting this, the safety guard, creates a fault condition. Locks all the power off. So we have to put everything back to neutral in order to re-establish safety. Back on, power comes on, select forward, away we go. Okay, let's take a quick tour of the tailstock. The tailstock is free to run on the bed, beautifully smooth. But if I wanted to lock that in a particular position, say I wanted to lock it here, well I have to get out the toolkit which comes with the lathe, one of these Allen keys, and I have to nip these two down here. That locks that. Why would you want to do that? Well, you might want to support what's called the centre there, and one of the most obvious uses is you might want to take this little device, which is a tailstock chuck, stick that in the quill, that's that little sleeve there called the quill, and then put a drill in there. And you've got your piece of work up this end in your chuck. So as you then turn this wheel, it pushes the quill, which carries the chuck, which carries the drill, into the work. Elegant solution. But what you might want to do is, you might want to have that in a particular position for a particular reason. You've got this great big black knob here. You whack that down tight, that locks the quill, which in turn locks everything else up so it's not moving. That's useful too.